Hi, welcome back to Midweek Encouragement, where we take a few moments just to look at some of the words of God and maybe some things of life and try to be an encouragement to one another. In fact, that's what the Bible tells us to do. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11, it says, "Therefore, be an encouragement to one another." So maybe there's something you hear today that you could take and go and be an encouragement to somebody else. Years and years ago, there was a cartoon series that was called The Far Side. Great cartoon series. Unfortunately, Gary Lawson stopped creating them. But anyway, there was these two cowboys. The scene shows two cowboys. They're out on the range, and one cowboy says to the other, "The buffalo is the ugliest animal in the world." Nearby, there's a buffalo, and it's heard to say, "I think I've just heard a discouraging word." Now, home on the range, yeah, we're seldom has heard a discouraging word. I think we hear discouraging words even out here in the West where I live. I think our words are kind of like elevators. They're either going to take us up or take us down, or maybe it's somebody else that we're taking up or taking down. Writer, speaker Stuart Briscoe said, "Discouragement comes when you try to start with what you wish you had but don't have, and it intensifies when you insist on trying to be in a position you are not in and probably will never be in." And what's the opposite of discouragement? It's got to be encouragement. And what does the encouragement mean? It means to put courage into. There are times where we want to give up. Things are bad all around us. And Paul wrote these words in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. "Therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart." Sometimes it's easy to lose heart. And I think if somebody lost heart, it would have to be Job. And yeah, we talk about the patience of Job. We don't know how long his suffering went on, but we see a lot of things there that we may not catch if we're not careful. The other day I was reading in the book of Job, and I saw something. I'd read it before, but it never stood out to me like it did that day. The book of Job is very unique. We have this man, he's got everything going on. He's got wealth, he's got popularity, he fears God, and he walks in integrity. Those are two very important things about him. So not only is he wealthy and walks in integrity, fears God, he has a huge number of livestock. He's got these 10 kids. Satan goes to talk to God. Kind of weird in that, but he has this conversation with God, and God says, "Have you considered my servant Job? He's a good guy. Have you considered him?" And God allows Satan to cause some things to happen around Job. He's just not allowed to take his own life. Job loses everything that he's got. He loses his kids. He loses his livestock. All he's got left is his wife, and he's sitting on an ash heap. He's got boils all over his body. He's got some friends, maybe they're there to console him or whatever, and he's got a case of bad breath because he says in chapter 19, "My breath is offensive to my wife." Well, in all of that, the attempt of his friends to try to encourage him, they weren't being too successful. And we go to chapter 42 of Job. God speaks again. And God is speaking against Job's friends. And he says that when Job prays for his friends, God will accept Job's prayer and not deal with his friends according to their folly. So after Job prays, God blesses him with twice what he had before he started. What God revealed to me in this is when you are in the midst of your discouragement and things don't seem to be going well, what we need to be doing is not just pray about our condition and ask God to take us out of it, but what we ought to be doing is praying for others and praying for our friends. We say at Christmas time, Jesus is the reason for the season. Well, I think he is the reason for the season of discouragement as well. He is not sending you through discouragement. He's going with you in it. He's promised, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." He says, when we go through the valley of the shadow of death, we don't need to fear evil, for he is with us. He's going with us. And we go through those times so that we do not rely on ourselves, but we turn and our focus, our attention on him. So in the midst of our storm, if we will pray for others, it will take our focus off what seems to be going wrong, and it will turn us to the one who is always doing right. I think of Luke chapter 1, we have Zechariah. He is serving as priest. His position as priest is to go before God on behalf of the people, and he's offering sacrifices for the sins of the people. He is before God, and I think he might have been a little bit discouraged in his life because here is he and his wife, they're good people. They're righteous people. They're doing things with integrity. They fear God, and they're going along. Here they are. They're up in years, but they don't have any children. And at that time, not having children was you were frowned upon. You were kind of an outcast. What's wrong with you? Well, he goes in and he serves. He's offering sacrifices for those sins, and he's praying for those people. Maybe he's even praying for himself, and he's lamenting to God how, hey, God, I'm old, don't have any kids. All of a sudden, an angel shows up. And the angel says, your prayers have been answered. He didn't just get confirmation that his prayer was heard. He got the answer is coming, and it's coming in 9 months. Now, think about this also. Jesus, what was Zechariah doing? What was Job doing? They prayed for their friends. What's Jesus doing? In John chapter 17, just before Jesus is arrested, just before he is tortured, just before he is crucified, he's found in the garden. What is he doing? He's praying, and he prays for 3 different people. He prays for himself, then he prays for his disciples, and then he prays for you and me. Before we were even thought of by our parents or our grandparents or anybody else, Jesus is praying for you, because in Ephesians 1, it says he chose us before creation. Why wouldn't he be praying for us in the garden? That's pretty awesome. He prays for us. So the other day, as I was praying, that was back on September 1st, I was praying, and God began to speak to me, and he said, praying for others in your affliction will move your eyes off your problem, and you will see my new things, plural, I am doing. You will see I have not abandoned you. I have been working. Draw close to my word and me. Delight yourself in me. Wow, that was a powerful statement from God, and I'm so glad he has that sacred trust to speak to me. The discouragement you find yourself in, it has a reason to it. It has a reason for the season to place your focus on Christ and his power, to delight yourself in him. So stop stirring the pot of what is wrong and start soaking in the aroma of what is good and true and pure and lovely, and start thinking about those things. Start focusing on what you have going right. I'm reminded of what Isaiah says, Isaiah 26 verses 3 and 4. It says, you will keep in perfect peace those whose mind are steadfast because they trust in you. Who's got you? Trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord himself is a rock, an unmovable rock, eternal, doesn't erode. Gideon was called by God to go into battle, and God showed him, your army of 32,000, way too big. Cut it back. So he said, okay, if any of you are fearful, you don't want to go to battle, go ahead and go home. 22,000 left. 10,000. Smaller army. God, this does not make sense. And so often with God, it doesn't make sense, but obedience always does. And God says, take them down to the river and watch how they drink water. If they get down on all four like a dog and try to lap it up with their tongue, you don't want them. But take those, they're reaching the water, cup it, and drink it. Because where their eyes are focused will make all the difference. Where are your eyes focused? Are you focusing on what is wrong, or are you focusing on the goodness of God? And then God sends them into battle, and he tells them to take the most ridiculous weapons I've ever heard of. Clay pots, trumpets, and torches. I don't think I've seen very many battles won with those, but in this case, God always wins. They smash the pots, they blow the trumpets, they raise the torches, and the enemy fights within themselves, destroying themselves, and they get the victory. That's how God works. The psalmist wrote in Psalms 121, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Where are you focusing on? And then Isaiah 43:18-19, God pointed this out to me and keeps reminding me of it day after day. Do not dwell in the past. See, I am doing a new thing. don't you perceive it? And as long as you're looking back at all the things that are way back there, you're never going to see what's in front of you. You're not going to see the new things that God is doing. Let's move our eyes and let's start looking for what God is doing. Remember, surfers don't make the waves. They catch the waves that God has made, and they look for the ones that God has made, and they ride them. So, hey, folks, I encourage you, come back this coming Sunday because we're going to talk about this some more. Blessings to you, friends. Bye-bye.